Hi guys, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to an art journal tutorial. This one features negative painting. And here is a sneak peek. This is also part of the color scheme challenge, a second version. So I started with leftover paint that I had from this page, which was the color scheme challenge, and I'll put a link to that video. And I just took the leftover paint and I brayered it on. And it's got some bright colors in there, but with that inclusion of the yellow green, it just kind of made it look dirty. So I wanted to brighten this up. So I grabbed this stencil and I'm adding some white to lighten and brighten. I just want to put a lot of pattern and interest on here. I don't often start with using leftover paint on an art journal page. I'll put it on collage papers and that, but very rarely do I do this. But this is the last page in this art journal, and I was anxious to get it done, so I thought, oh, I'll just put some leftover paint. To lighten this up, I could have also used the brayer, continued to use the brayer and just brayered on white, and that would push things back and allow me just to bring out the brighter colors. So I'm looking at it, turning it this way and that, just as I'm trying to decide what my next step would be. So I'm continuing with the same stencil with the turquoise in the back. I want to bring out the turquoise a little bit more than where it is in the background and get more of it on the page. So I'm adding this. It's just very faint. You do not see a lot of it. But you can see now, when you look at this, you see the turquoise or the cobalt teal, I think it's called. The stencil is called Dash V and it's the 6-inch one. I believe the other one's fantastical, but the links will be in the description box below, as always, as well as some affiliate links and discount coupons. I want to add some contrast to the page, so I grab my black, just adding some lines, thinking, oh, why am I putting this? I tend to go symmetrical, so I'm just adding a little bit more. And this adds a lot of interest to the page. Instantly, it starts coming into focus. There's some substance to it or weight. Now I'm going to bring some of that deep violet. It's interesting because the page that I showed you before that I did the color scheme challenge on, and this one, there's a very different look, even though I've used the same exact colors. And it just shows you. This shelf liner, and I'm just adding some more black marks. And I love this shelf liner. It just adds some dots and it's making for a very interesting background. I'm just framing the page as I think about what comes next. I also have the black on my makeup sponge, so I tend to utilize it, even though I know maybe later I'm going to do a little bit more shading. So now I'm playing with possibilities, testing out. I've got these flowers on my desk, thinking the white. Not sure I want to go there, thinking, oh, you know what, whenever you have a busy background, using the negative painting technique is one that works. So I grabbed this circle template, and I'll put a link to a similar product in the description box. And I'm just drawing some circles on the background with my Stabilo All pencil. And this is white. The Stabilo All pencil are water soluble, and I know I'll be able to erase them later on, but I wanted to be able to see the lines. And I never know where to place them. Usually I cut out circles and place the circles where I think I want them and kind of test out the orientation. This time I just went and drew them right on. So the goal with negative painting is I'm going to paint everything other than the circles. So the background will disappear where there are no circles, and you'll see this lovely patterned background where the circles are. Alternatively, here I could have painted the circles with either the violet or the green or the teal and left the background patterned. And that would have given a very different effect. So I'm using the cobalt teal and a little bit of the deep violet mixed in. And my goal here is to use the negative painting technique, but I really still want to see the background, the patterns that are there, even though the color won't show through per se. I didn't want to go complete coverage here. And I'm using an angle brush, and I find that works really well to get along the straight edges. It just makes it a little more effortless. And I apologize, I live kind of in a construction zone, and today it just seems to be a little bit noisy, so hopefully you cannot hear that. So I'm just filling that in, all the circles, and already it's a very different feel to it. Now I'm grabbing a baby wipe, and my baby wipe's a little dry here, so I do get a wet one, and I wipe off all the Stabilo all pencil. And now I'm coming in, I like that white line, so I'm bringing in my fine line applicator and outlining it. Now I do it fairly carefully here, although imperfect. And then I go in and I kind of doodle around it, making it a little bit messier and less precise. Some days I do better with the fine line bottle than others. And you're trying to avoid getting your hand into the wet paint. Now what I should have done here is I should have shaded these circles before I did any of the fine line work. So I would have shaded with either black or a dark blue, but I didn't. And here I'm just doing the sketching going around, trying to be loose with it. So it was at this stage that I really wasn't too sure about what next. I could left the circles as the focal image. So then I decide, oh, I'm going to do some shading, and I grab the deep violet and I'm putting a little bit of shading in here. And this is the floating acrylic technique that you've seen me use gazillions of times. And then I'm kind of grunging up the background, adding a little bit of deep violet to it, making it a little bit more interesting. And I'm trying all these things because I'm not sure where I want to go with it. But you just keep playing, you keep moving forward, and usually something comes in, some idea. And sometimes you need to walk away. And that's what I did here. I was a little frustrated, I admit, and I actually packed it up for the day and came back the next day and I had an idea. Remember those flowers that I put on there that were white? I wasn't really loving that, but I thought, okay, what if I made them purple? So this is a piece of rice paper, and I'll put a link in the description box so you can see what I'm using. I'm wetting it and I'm putting the purple paint with some of that turquoise on top of it. I just want to get this all over color. And I'm using the rice paper. It takes paint differently. It just looks differently than other papers. But you could totally just do this on copy paper if you wish. Rice paper will collage differently. So half of it I put the turquoise on it and it gives you kind of the blue tones and a little bit of the turquoise and interest in there. So now that that's completely dry, I am taking that same flower stamp that I had those white flowers, and I love the size of this, a nice big one, and the detail is amazing. And I'm spreading some Liquitex Basic Mars Black on my gloss mat, and I'm going to stamp with the black acrylic paint. This is going to give a little bit of a texture where the archival ink would not. And I find I get a better print with this than archival ink. If you're using archival ink, make sure you re-ink your stamp pad so you get it nice and juicy. And I'm loving the effect. You can see all the details, the line work on this stamp. And it's kind of looks almost like it's embossed a little bit, but it's just the acrylic paint. So you could paint the rice paper different colors, get more variety, and then stamp, and it would be absolutely beautiful. So I need to remember to doing that. When you use stamps with acrylic paint, you need to take the time during your creating session to wash them. And I have a stencil brush that I get in there. You can use an old toothbrush that you've put through the dishwasher. And I'm spraying it with my Murphy's oil soap and I'm just getting out the paint. I want to keep my stamps working. So now that this is dry, I am just going to cut. The leftover pieces will go into my stash. And I'm just leaving a bit of a border around here. It doesn't have to be too precise. And as you can see, I'm turning with the left hand and cutting with the right. And having a good pair of scissors is really key. So then I cut out all three of them. And you can see the weight that it has. Now here's one where I did the negative painting with the hearts, and the hearts are the focal image. And I could have left my circles as being the focal images, but instead I'm using them as a backdrop to the focal image, which is these lovely flowers on the rice paper. And I went through my sentiments and out of the Through the Garden Gate sentiment pack, I picked the one, She breathes in dirt and exhales flowers. I love that. I love my garden. I love growing things and If you're interested in my sentiment pack, you can go and check them out at ninnysnapkins.com. There is a link in the description box. I love how that purple is forward and the circles just serve as a backdrop for it. I'm using my Liquitex Basics Matte Fluid Medium. And even though I had no idea where this was going to go and it caused me some frustration, in the end, I absolutely love it. So give your page some time. Sometimes it just needs that to doing it, to to come together. And so if you have a background that sits there for a couple days, that's okay. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of detail and shading using my floating acrylic. I'm getting the black paint and I'm adding more to the edge to frame the page. Now, if you have too much water on your brush, touch it to a paper towel or a cloth, and that'll take a little bit of the water out. If it's too dry, dip the other end in the water. And I will put a link to the instructional video where I teach how to do this technique. And I'm shading around the sentiment, and I will be shading around those poppies as well. The secret with the pages is have fun with them. Don't stress. This should not be causing you stress. Let them sit for a couple days. Come back. Addition different things. And then I'm doing a little bit of shading on the flowers. Because of all the shading that's part of the stamp, this wasn't completely necessary, but I love doing my shading. And there, it wasn't like I wanted it, so I just wiped it off and I'm trying again. Because everything's acrylic underneath, I can do that. If you had used watercolors or water soluble, um, water activated paints, you would not be able to do that because you would wipe out what was underneath. So if you do that and you want to preserve it, you need to use a workable fixative to seal it so that it doesn't reactivate at these later stages and gives you the option of cleaning it up. What's your favorite flower stamp that you would recommend for me to buy? I like the larger ones. So all in all, when you look at the background, there's very little of the yellow-green that's showing through. And I really focus the other two colors. But that green does add interest to the page. I could have come in and done some highlighting with white. And I just grabbed my Sakura glaze pen. This is black. I love this pen. It's such a nice, bold, thick line. It's dimensional and it's glossy, so it just adds that little extra something. Just brings out the sentiment a little bit more. So I'd like to thank you for watching my videos. If you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button, click the bell so you get notified of upcoming videos. I do put out about 3 videos a week, and so if you're not seeing the notifications, you may want to unsubscribe and then resubscribe, and then make sure you select the notifications. Sometimes it just automatically boots you out or doesn't notify you. Follow me on Instagram at Creative Katie. Leave me a comment, ask me a question, and keep being creative.